Hi, okay, so hope you're good, feeling well, looking after yourself. What I wanted to do is share a couple of practices with you to help deal with these weird, crazy, uncertain times. And they're designed to help you feel a little calmer. If you're feeling anxious about just how things are going at the moment, addressing that hopefully, and at the same time developing a little bit of respiratory resilience, which will be very useful. And if you find yourself developing symptoms, then this will hopefully help you with your breathing. Okay, so first off, finding either a comfortable seated position with your hands on your knees, palms turned upwards, and with your eyes closed. Or if you prefer, you can lie down on your back and just make yourself comfortable, letting the lower back feel long, upper back feel broad against the floor, and your palms turned up towards the ceiling. If you're seated, you might want to pop a little yoga block if you've got one under your hips, just to lift them a little bit higher relative to your knees, or you could just use a rolled up towel, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then we'll start by just, eyes closed, palms turned upwards. That immediately helps us reduce the stimulation to the nervous system through the eyes, stimulation through the nerve endings in your fingertips. And then just starting to scan the attention around the body and finding any parts that we can make any more comfortable. So, taking your attention down to your toes and relaxing your toes, relaxing your ankles, relaxing the muscles in your calves, relaxing your knees, relaxing your thighs, and then just relaxing the hips if you can. If you need to move, then that's fine. And then being aware of the buttocks pressing against the floor, whether you're seated or lying down. Feeling a little bit longer through the spine, either through lifting your crown if you're seated, or just shuffling your tailbone forward, shuffling your shoulder blades apart if you're reclining. Letting your arms and your shoulders and your hands and your fingers feel relaxed just by asking those parts of the body to relax. And then we're going to start with something very simple, which is just turning your attention inwards to watch what the breath is doing. So just watching as the breath comes into the body, watching as the breath leaves the body. And if you find any temptation to somehow take control of your breath, just resisting that temptation and as best you can acting as an impartial witness to each breath as it comes and as it goes. So watching as you breathe in and watching as you breathe out. And it's as simple as that. Now, simple doesn't mean easy, and you might find already the mind is starting to race. As soon as you give it some space, it will get in there and start trying to drag you off in one direction or another. It might, for example, start to take you to a different location completely, thinking about being somewhere else. Or it might try and cast off into the future. And if you find that's happening, if you find you're worrying about what's happening in the near future, what's happening in the longer term, well, just see if you can gently steer your attention back to your breath and watching it rise again and fall again. And just letting your breath take center stage in your awareness, making it the most interesting thing you have to consider. And if the mind keeps racing, well, that's fine. That's the nature of the mind to be restless. But as soon as you notice, just steering your attention back to your breath, rising and falling. As you watch each breath come and each breath go, just reassuring yourself that your breathing is absolutely fine. You can't get this wrong as long as you just step back and let the breath do its own thing. And this focus on the breath just helps us to calm the nervous system. And you might notice after a few moments as you watch the breath come and go that it's starting to slow down, become a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. If that's not happening, you're not doing it wrong. We're just watching the breath come and go. And again, if the mind wanders off into the future and you start worrying about how things might turn out, or you're even just making plans or thinking about what you're going to have for your tea, let's just bring our attention back to the breath once again. And likewise, if the mind starts wandering back into the past, maybe thinking, oh, do you know what, with hindsight, Brexit all the time wasn't so bad. Well, that's fine, we just bring our attention back to the breath. And as we watch the breath, just noticing how it brings us to the present moment. And usually in the present moment, everything's kind of okay. Most of the time, it's just fine. We can get anxious if we start wondering about how we're going to cope, about an imagined future, how it might turn out. Well, that's absolutely natural, but let's just steer our attention back to the breath again. Now, you might find it helps to pay particular attention to some of the qualities of your breath. So here are some examples. As you breathe in and breathe out, you might notice how deep or shallow your breath feels. As I say, you can't get this wrong, so if you notice any temptation to judge yourself, let's see if we can just let that go and bring our attention back to the rise of each breath and the fall of each breath. You might instead be interested in where the body moves in response to each breath, feeling the belly lift or feeling your ribs expand. Maybe as you breathe in, your nostrils flare a little bit, just being aware of the body's response. Or you might be particularly interested in the rhythm or the speed, the tempo of your breathing, noticing how fast or slow it feels. And again, you can't get this wrong. So if you find yourself wondering if you're doing it right, you're doing it right. And each time the mind wanders, just gently steer it back to the breath. And if it keeps wandering, well, there's no need to be frustrated with yourself. Like I say, it's the nature of the mind to be restless. But when you do notice, again, let's patiently, persistently bring our attention back to the breath. So right now we're letting our breath take care of itself in, I like to think of it as automatic mode. Breath comes and the breath goes. If you need to shift your position to be more comfortable, then you can do that. And then we're going to move into what I think of as semi-automatic breathing mode. So as you take your next breath in, let's just count that breath in. And maybe you get to 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. And as you breathe out, let's try and control the length of the exhalation to last the same amount of time. So if you count to 5 as you breathe in, let's control the out breath for a count of 5. Counting the breath in, counting the breath out. And as you breathe in and out, you might notice there's little pauses between each part of the breath. And if there are pauses, fine. Or you might find your breath moves a little more seamlessly from the inhalation to the exhalation to the inhalation. Again, if that's what's happening, that's fine. What's more important is we just observe and maintain our focus. Breathing in, counting it in. Breathing out, counting it out. So it's the natural breath we're counting in and regulating the exhalation to last the same amount of time. And then let's move into full manual mode now. So as you take your next breath in, let's just add 1 to whatever number you were counting to before. So if you were counting to 5, let's now extend that a little bit to count to 6, slightly lengthening and deepening the in-breath, and slightly lengthening and deepening the out-breath to the same new count. Counting the breath in, and counting it back out again. And then, as long as it's not going to strain your breathing, you might like to add another 1 to your count. So making it a little longer still as you breathe in, and the corresponding out breath to your new, slightly longer count. So you might feel the lung is working just a little bit harder to accommodate that deeper inhalation and accommodate that deeper exhalation. And if you feel minded to add another 1 to that count, we can do that now. So breathing in a little bit longer still. And breathing out a little longer still. As you keep your attention on your counts, just being aware that this longer, deeper breathing will help you develop that respiratory resilience, which is going to be really important in the immediate future. Building our lung capacity, helping to oxygenate the blood to let it work more efficiently. Maybe noticing, as you count your breath in and count it out, a calming, relaxing effect. But also maybe a slightly heightened sense of alertness to the body, to the sounds you can hear around you. And this combination of greater alertness and calmness is the ideal emotional and mental state. It helps us to be a little bit cooler in our reactions, a little bit better in our decision making, having a greater sense of equanimity. Counting that breath in and counting it back out again. And if you feel tempted to add another 1 to your count, then we can do that. Breathing in and counting the breath out. And really you can do this indefinitely as long as your breath isn't straining, slowly, gradually building up that lung capacity, taking longer, deeper inhalations and exhalations. But for now, let's just drop out of full manual mode, back to autopilot with the breathing. Just being a witness to your breath, nothing more, nothing less than that. And then just noticing how the body's feeling, noticing how the mind is feeling, and just comparing with how you felt at the start of the practice. Okay, fantastic. Hope that's helped. I'll be bringing you more videos in the coming days, so stay safe and don't worry.